right, so we're going to talk about something a little bit abstract, but very, very, very concrete in some ways about how it affects our life. And I'm going to start about kind of the symbiotic relationship between man and machine. And I want to talk about it because it's, I think we're all dealing with it, right? We're all here. You know, artificial intelligence seems to be the topic of choice for this conference, and it is incredibly disruptive, and it's scary. And a lot of people are afraid of technology in general, of big data, data analytics, and artificial intelligence, how it may be replacing jobs, replacing humans, and you know, I've been in the tech world for about 30 years, and I'd say the last 3 years are probably more disruptive than the previous 27 years combined. It's really, really exciting times right now for innovation and change. And you know, when we talk about change, I want to start with a little story about myself. So I am actually, even though I'm a industry leader, best-selling author in technology and all that, I'm actually a construction worker. I started as a construction worker in New York City. I'm born and raised in New York City, and I used to build skyscrapers in New York City. And then I had a car accident, and the car accident blew out a bunch of discs in my back, and I couldn't work anymore. So, you know, a lot of times in life, change happens, whether you're prepared or not, it doesn't matter. And I think there's a good analogy between, a similarity between what happened in my life and what's happening today in society. You know, when I was laying in traction for 10 days after my accident, I laid there thinking, like, what can I do? I can either, you know, be disabled the rest of my life, or I could start doing something, retrain myself to do something that works, which is my brain and not my back, right? So I actually enrolled in a course at Columbia University doing data architecture, not data science, it didn't exist yet, but computer science and programming. And I knew that in order to survive, I had to make a change. And I got really good at it, and it propelled my life in ways that I could not have possibly imagined in my entire life. So, you know, I think that we are going through a tremendous disruption right now. It is real, it is happening. You know, if you deny it, you know, you're just going to be stuck. And I think that the best way with any evolution, right? With any evolution, you have to either evolve and adapt to change or die. Right? And I think we're going through a tremendous evolution right now in technology and in society on how we're interacting with data and how we're interacting with artificial intelligence and the machines in our pockets and the machines on our desks. And we have to really embrace it. And I think it's not natural, right? Sometimes we have to like force it and approach with caution. And I want to talk about, if we can get this going, I want to talk about a symbiotic relationship that is probably not obvious, if we can get it working. So one of the things that I do as a hobby also is I'm raising a coral reef in my home. And one of the things that's really extraordinary is, for anybody familiar with this, we're looking at a sea anemone and a clownfish. Right, sea anemones are poisonous, right? Their tentacles actually sting fish and kill them. And clownfish actually can eat the tentacles if they can get around the stingers because they're very, very nutritional. But for some reason, they actually decided, right, that it's actually better for both of their well-beings if they work together, right? So the anemone hosts the clownfish. It actually serves as a protectant against bigger fish. And then the clownfish, actually, its waste actually gives nutrition to the anemone. And they live in harmony, right, against all odds, where they really shouldn't. And I think there's a lot to be learned from this, right? I think that, you know, when we're dealing with artificial intelligence and human beings, we are going to advance and survive way longer if we embrace the change and we start using each other's, I'm speaking about it like it's a living thing, but if we embrace the change of artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence learns from our human behavior, I think we're going to advance much, much faster. So, I do want to talk a little bit about, change. And one thing about change, I'm going to quote a guy named Rudy Dornbush. He's an economist, famous economist. And he said, "Things take longer to happen than you think it will, but then they happen much faster than you thought they could." And I think, with AI, I think we're at that inflection point right now where, it took a long time. We've been talking about AI since I'm a child. That's a very, very, very long time ago. And, and finally now, we're at the inflection point where it is happening. Just show of hands, how many people are actively doing or thinking about doing an AI project within your organization? Okay, I'd say that's probably 30 to 40%, which is about right, I think, of the room. And I think it's because why it's not 100%, I think there is a lot of fear. And I think there's a lot of fear of the unknown and actually making that evolution of change and embracing AI and actually using it. Statistically, I will let you know, 72% of all business users actually see AI as a competitive advantage with a survey done by PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then 61% of all executives say that they're actually using innovation as a strategy, and they're using AI to identify opportunities that they otherwise would miss, right? So that's 1 in 3 people, which is 2 out of 3 people are actually using AI today, right? And it's only going to increase, because one thing's for sure, as a technologist, I could say without a doubt that it works, right? When you use artificial intelligence, you use deep machine learning or deep learning with your data, you will find insight that you couldn't otherwise find. It's a fact. The idea of being able to understand your customer without your data, right? You're just setting yourself up to go out of business, right? The only way to understand your customer is through your data, right? How many people have actually spoke to their customer this year, face to face? Okay, yeah, I see about 10, 15 hands out of the whole room. The way we actually interact with our customers is through some kind of transaction that's either online or through an app, right? And that's really the only way to understand what they're doing, what they're liking, what they're not liking, why they're buying what they're buying, and how to influence them to buy other things is through data and through analytics and through recommendations. So I will also say that, the innovation of artificial intelligence, which leads us to things like virtual reality and augmented reality, it's also a force to be reckoned with right now. Pokemon Go, right, it peaked at 45 million users a single day. Like its daily usage is 45 million users, right? And we all know that gaming is the gateway to innovation. Historically, it's always been porn, right? Right? In the 90s, the porn companies are the ones dealing with, streaming video, high concurrency, large throughput, right? If you're a systems integrator on a porn site, you can work anywhere. And now it's gaming, right? Gaming is, they are the innovators. And the thing that not only from a tech perspective, but also from getting society to embrace technology, right? That games are where it's at. And the fact that, one of the most widely used games is actually using augmented reality, for us to, hold up our phone in front of a person and see, when they walk into a store and see when's the last time they shopped here, what was the last thing they purchased, what is their recency, intensity, and frequency as a customer. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's probably going to happen this year, right? So I think the opportunities are pretty endless if we embrace it. I think right now the trend seems to be virtual personal assistants, and another one that's actually that's interesting is automated data analytics, right? So my business, my bread and butter is data analytics. So once it becomes automated, I could potentially be out of business, right? But this happened already, right? Data warehousing was my bread and butter, and then big data came, and you just have to evolve. Again, you have to evolve, embrace, adapt, and change, otherwise you die, right? So it's really important when we're doing this, don't be scared, right? And don't think of it as a competition. And I think that we can live in harmony with artificial intelligence as an employee, as a company, and as a customer, right? We all can live in harmony in a symbiotic relationship. In 2012, only 10% of cars were connected to the internet. Anybody know how many percentage of cars are connected to the internet right now? 90%, right? So, and driverless cars, the technology is already here. The only reason that we don't live in a society full of driverless cars is fear, right? So what is the car industry doing? The car industry is slowly but surely brainwashing us to believe that a driverless car is actually safer than driving it yourself. And how are they doing that? Right? What are the new innovations in driving lately? Right? It's when you change your lane, it's going to let you know if there's a car there you didn't see it. If something stops in front of you, it's going to apply the brakes for you. Right? It's going safety first. Right? And I think that we're slowly but surely going to start relying on technology to actually help us stay safe. And once we feel that, having a driverless car is not going to be a big leap anymore, right? We'll see that in a couple of years for sure. So, I guess technology and innovation has always been resisted, right? And I have a few quotes that I think are just fun. That I think you'll enjoy. When the light bulb was invented, it was poo-pooed by the English in 1878, saying it's unworthy of attention of anyone practical or scientific, right? The light bulb, it's not practical, right? Airplanes. In 1911, the French general and commander of World War I said, airplanes are interesting scientific toys, but they have no military value, right? So, if we're poo-pooing AI and we're poo-pooing machine learning in order to advance ourselves as society, I think, these are very, very good lessons. Thomas Watson, right, from IBM, said that, the entire world could probably only use about 5 computers, right? Kind of wrong, right? In television, right, the movie executive from 20th Century Fox in 1946, televisions won't be able to hold any market value. People are eventually going to get tired of watching a box of plywood in their living room, right? And what's interesting about him is he's a movie guy. So he was afraid, right, that it was going to cannibalize his market, right? And that's also part of a lot of the resistance, is people don't like change because they're afraid, okay, what happens to me after the change? And, I think the best thing you could do is arm yourself, arm your employees, and arm your customers to be able to evolve with the change. Another funny one is, Bill Gates once said in 2004, 2 years from now, all spam will be solved. So he got that wrong, right? But the good news is I think now with AI, we can actually solve that problem. And I'm looking forward to that one because I have about 35,000 unread emails in my inbox right now. I would love to see an AI-based spam controller, right? Okay. So training machines to think. I think there's so much opportunity, and I think, through the industrial revolution, right? We started with steam, and then we started with, changing, from human manufactured items to mechanical manufacturing facilities. And then electricity made the first assembly lines. And then, the introduction of electronics and IT, where we started applying logic to some of these controllers that make, the items that we use every day. I think the natural progression is to start introducing AI and cyber-physical systems, right, where we're coexisting and we're helping. Robots are helping us and we're helping robots. Truth be told, excuse me, just getting over the flu. I haven't met yet a smart robot. Like I've met some robots in my day, and I think they're pretty fundamental in advancement. I think, at most they have, or at best they have like a decision tree logic that someone actually programmed within them. But I think the advancement of robots and the advance with artificial intelligence, I think will really start to change things in a very, very significant way in the very near future. And I think, if we could train machines to think, then we can actually start doing things that are really significant, like reducing the $3.4 trillion we spend in healthcare, right? Guessing at, what the symptoms might be, and being able to let pharma companies tell us that their pills actually work when they really don't, right? Or finding out when doctors are over-medicating. The healthcare system, very near and dear to my heart. I think we can actually, with AI, it could be probably the most huge disruptor or disrupted industry right now. I think, it's statistically proven that you can actually write some algorithms to figure out what is wrong with you based on symptoms, right? As good, if not better, than a human being. And I think that, with the AI to actually help doctors to make these decisions, and of course, just like the driverless car, for a long time, we'll still have the doctor driving, but eventually we're going to learn that we don't really need the doctor, right? We could probably, with the implementation of AI and combined with the implementation of blockchain, we could probably get a lot of healthcare very, very self-service with a self-service environment, right? We still need actual surgeons and people to actually do the work on us, right? But for figuring out what's wrong and coming up with diagnoses, I think that there is a tremendous opportunity and way to help mankind and also to save the economy. It's something that I think, will definitely become optimized as far as spending within the GNP of the U.S., if not the world. So, when we talk about fear, right, who's really afraid of AI? I think it's people who are afraid of losing their job, right? And let me ask another question. Who today has a little piece of tape or a little cover on their camera, on their laptop? Raise your hand if you have one of those, right? A lot of hands go up, right? Why is that? Why do we have that? Because we're afraid, right? What's that? The NSA, right. Somebody's watching me, right? Eventually, we're going to say, so what, right? Like there's, think of when we thought about doing our banking online. I would never, like all kinds, when the internet first became popular and we started doing transactions online, one of the first things to get adopted was banking, probably the most sensitive thing you ever want to reveal. Now, who doesn't do banking online? Right, zero, right? So how did we overcome that? We started using it, and then we realized that it's safe, right? And I think with AI, we have to start using it and realize that it's safe. And I think that, when we talk about fear, we talk about, lack of education, right? And what's really sad to me is that with the amount of innovation that's been going on and the technological advances in the world, literacy in America has been a steady state. The level of literacy and illiteracy has been the same for the last 15 years, for the last 10 years, right? So so something has to change, right? We have to figure out, and I think the answer is with AI. I think we can actually help enhance teaching to do very specific methods depending on learning styles of individuals, right? There are half a dozen different learning styles on how you actually comprehend things, audio, visual, through experience. And, every school system does one, right? They pick one and they use it. And so if you're not, if you're one of the other five, you're kind of out of luck. I think through AI, we can actually help the people learn, right, the way they need to learn by interaction and following the behavior patterns and figuring out what type of instruction are they actually getting questions correct and what type of are they getting it wrong. And as they actually interact with the machine more, the machine will get smarter and teach them the way they need to learn. This is kind of a pet project that we're doing in our own innovation lab at Caserta. It's something that I believe in. So, imagining the possibilities. We talked about a couple already. I do believe that keyboards will become a thing of the past. I do think that every machine that we interact with will be completely speech recognized. I think, even today we're starting to see some of the BI tools starting to use voice commands. If anyone's interested and anybody's in New York City, I am actually hosting a meetup. We have about 5,000 members, and it's called bigdatawarehousing.com, Big Data Warehousing on meetup.com. And on March 13th, we're going to do a presentation on integrating voice recognition with business intelligence. So you can actually ask your phone, what were my sales yesterday, and it will just tell you, right, by doing analytics through voice on, so you can go to meetup.com and find that. It's a good crowd, usually free pizza and beer. And then, I think AR for business, speech recognition, I think those are all things that are like just not even a stretch, like they're happening, right? It's going to happen. And if it's not happening for you already, it will happen this year, like not even in the future. This year, I think we'll see all of those start to change. Whoops. So, to wrap up, I don't know how we're doing on time, probably, just perfect. So I do want to talk a little bit about my company for a second. So, we are a consulting firm. We have nothing to sell except for some new ideas for your business. And we also help implement those ideas. So if you're looking to do something that's some digital transformation within your organization, business intelligence, data intelligence, and artificial intelligence, those are our specialties. And when it comes to implementation, coming up with architecture, data engineering, and data science, we're partnered with AWS and Google and Microsoft and all of the big players in this space. And we can help your needs. We go across every vertical. The only thing that all of our customers have in common is they're starting to use analytics to be a differentiator for a competitive advantage. And feel free to reach out to me with questions, comments, or anything you like. And thank you so much for your time.